Okay, I want to start off with a quick look at news. We have some interesting news coming out. Today we've already had New Zealand interest rate announcements, and you can see that the New Zealand dollar has rallied pretty good. There weren't official expectations of the interest rate being dropped, but there was some chatter about the interest rate being dropped, and the fact that it didn't, even though it wasn't quote officially expected, it's being held, and that made the New Zealand dollar rally pretty good. Okay, so that's all good there. Employment numbers for Australia. This is going to be not such a small deal. Here's something interesting. We have employment numbers for Australia coming out in approximately 2 hours, a little less than 2.5 hours, and there's going to be some interesting stuff we'll talk about here in just a moment. But just know that we've got that coming up. Tomorrow is going to be an interesting day as well. We have some inflationary reports from UK, so we'll see how that affects things. And then we have Draghi speaking tomorrow morning bright and early, and I don't know how much this is going to affect things. He's speaking at the Bank of Latvia's economic conference in Riga. I had a good friend from Latvia. He was actually Australian. He was half Australian, half Latvian, and he loved Latvia, which I've never been to Latvia, but I can't imagine that the beaches in Latvia are nicer than the ones in Australia. And wait, I don't think they have beaches in Latvia, so I don't know what he was doing there, but he seemed to love it. Draghi's going to be hanging out over there tomorrow and chit-chatting about stuff, so we'll be on bright and early tomorrow morning, and we'll see just how these euro pairs react to Draghi's bidness. So that'll be worth keeping an eye on. Okay, so speaking of euro pairs, we currently have a long euro dollar position. Everyone should be able to see that there. We got into it at 7:15 a.m. chat time, and we're still in it, which is okay. I don't mind that. So 132.90 we entered. We're currently about 18 pips in profit on the trade, and it keeps bouncing around, and I'm not sure what I think the euro is going to do, but I'm about to propose something, maybe, as they say, a little bit crazy, but I think it's worth talking about. So for the moment, we're still long euro dollar 132.90. And we'll probably take some profit pretty quick here. I talked about earlier taking some profit on before the daily pivot comes out. Tom has posted that daily pivot for us. And hold on, I'm scrolling back here. Come here. There we go. So the daily pivot's at 132.92. So basically back at our entry, and I think that it's a very common thing to have this euro retrace back and get in, give us opportunity to get long potentially again at 132.90. But I have something else that I'm going to propose. So 132.90 is the missed daily pivot at this point, which is basically exactly our entry. So I'm going to move our I'm going to move our profit targets to an even 20 pips. So 133.20, which basically is to say you can get out right now, or you can let it run for a couple more pips. But I'm gonna put that there for now, and then we'll probably actually end up closing this trade at the end of the session and just take whatever profit we've got. Euro dollar, as you can see, for the last 5 or 6 hours has been consolidated there. So we'll just, we'll potentially just take a little 20 pip profit on there, because here's what I'm ultimately looking to do. We're sitting at just shy of 133.10. So we're just shy of that, and I think I'm really liking the possibility of getting short euro dollar basically at current market price. I think we have a good opportunity for that. Here's a couple of things to look at that might sound crazy, look crazy, and even be crazy. We had the euro dollar run down pretty nicely here. It crashed pretty hard, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red candles in a row. Well, if you look at it here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green candles, 5 bullish candles consecutively, heading into some decent support. Resistance. It's been one of those days. Big trend lines, big details, big things happening there. I'm starting to just think that that this euro dollar might be a great opportunity to get shorty and short. You can see if you go from the highs here, there we go. If you go from the highs of this little run to the lows, the euro is stalling out at the 61.8, which is basically 133.20. And it poked up above 133.20 by a couple of pips, but it's just sitting there, and it's leaving us kind of wondering what might potentially be in the works. And this is where I'm starting to get very interested in a possible run down to 130.100 and even 130. And we'll just kind of see how that goes, but I think there's a good trend line and some very good stuff in the works here. So I'm strongly considering getting short euro dollar basically at current market price. Yes, Wendy. Yeah, absolutely. The Syria stuff. Now the Syria stuff. There was a little bit of risk off or stuff because there was going to potentially be government involvement and military involvement, and then that's kind of been smoothed out a little bit. So that's where we've seen some rally on the euro dollar. We've kind of seen a little bit of risk on back in, and so I think there's going to be some potentially good opportunities here. Now, yes, we have Draghi's speech tomorrow, but I'm not 100% sure how much that's going to affect things. Is it, it could be more of a regionalized kind of speech that he's giving. So I don't know. I think this still merits a potential trade and something that we could possibly get into and get out of before Draghi's speech. Yes, and Draghi was very bearish, very dovish last time he spoke in the central bank, the European Central Bank report. So, I don't know. My whole goal in life thus far over the last several weeks has been to get short 13300 euro dollar, and it's here, and it's time to. I think it's time to bite the bullet and go for it. And so I think that's what we need to do. So I'm ultimately looking short to get. Or I'm looking to get short euro dollar and ride this thing down to 13100 potentially for a nice little 200 pip move. And stops, I would have my stops somewhere around 133.50. So that's kind of where we are. There's definitely some good stuff. Russia has actually done something good, which, no offense if there's any Russians in here, but they've not typically chipped in when we've needed it, so it's good to have them getting involved. Okay, so that's the euro dollar business. I have almost no interest in trading anything pound dollar related. Pound dollar itself. There's some other pound pairs that are interesting, but the pound is just going crazy, and I think the pound's probably headed up to 160. I think it's just headed to 160, and I don't think there's too much we're going to be able to do about it. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it and see where it goes, but I don't think there's any good trades to have there. There's nothing to do on the Aussie dollar yet, but we do have employment numbers for Australia coming out in 2 hours, and that's a huge deal. I'm looking very closely and very specifically at the low of today, which actually expanded just a little tiny bit, which is around 92.75. 92.75. That's about 50 pips off of current market price. I like this Aussie dollar for a potential short. This thing has been going up and going crazy, and it's coming into major resistance levels here, which is the 93 kind of 20 area, and you can see that it's currently sitting at about 93.25. So there's lots of resistance there, and I think those employment numbers could start dragging this Aussie dollar down. We have a missed daily pivot 110 pips below, a missed weekly pivot basically 200 pips below, and then we have another missed daily pivot back here. So I think the Aussie dollar could be a safe bet with a sell stop at about 92.70, just in case. 92.70, and it needs to be watched. because, as we know with any employment numbers, spikes can happen. This thing could spike down and turn around and head straight back up and do all kinds of crazy things. So I'm going to have a sell stop on the Aussie dollar. I don't know if I'll put a buy order in. I'm just going to put probably a pending sell order because we have so many unfulfilled targets down here that I think that might be dragging the Aussie dollar down. So there's some good appeal there, and I like that I actually really like that it's kind of far away. That it's about 50 pips away because it gives us some wiggle room. I don't like putting pending orders in before news announcements and then just having things go crazy and get spiked in and out, and so on. So if the numbers come out negative for Australia, which they may or may not, Australia looks like it's making a nice little recovery here. If the numbers come out negative for Australia, then having this 50 pips away, we could still easily get 30, 40, or 50 pips out of this, even with a sell stop below here. So I'm going to have a pending order on the Aussie dollar below 92, below 92.75. Again, it's coming into that big resistance. It's had a very bullish run, basically straight up for about 2 weeks, and so nice little move there. And I think it's time that we take advantage of a little bit of retracement, which I think the pair is very well due for. And of course, we need to keep an eye on this overall bigger picture. If that high holds, and you can see that 92.30 area is about the 23% fib, so it's got a long ways to go before it even really starts that retracement. So I like that Aussie dollar quite a bit. Looking for an order like that with the employment numbers tonight. Same type of situation with the Aussie yen. And guys, stop me if you have any questions. Let me know, but I'm just I'm running through some of this stuff here because I want to make sure that we don't miss any detailers. And so this is going to be a very similar type setup as well. We have a missed weekly pivot, we have a gap, we have all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. And this is just, it's made a nice little run up, and just like the Aussie dollar, it's coming into some pretty significant resistance. I think this is a good area to start looking for some of that too. One thing that I'm going to keep an eye on is this weekly pivot, the weekly pivot's missed, but we have this consolidation, and I'm looking at all of the yen pairs. I'm just gonna watch this. I'm not sure how much I'm going to trade this, but I'm going to watch this. We have a low of Friday and a high of the last 24 hours of 290 pips on the Aussie yen. Low of Friday, high of the last several hours, 430 pips on the pound yen. Again, low of Friday, high of the last several hours, 350 pips on the euro yen. I'm looking at this range. Now, a lot of these have had pretty steady movements. The euro yen has not. This is an absolute range right here of 350 pips, and our 23% fib is 132.55. So it's a little bit below current market price. We have some missed daily pivots. That's interesting to me. Likewise, 157.50. So all these are about 40 and 50 pips away. We have the 23% fib on the pound yen. Interesting, because we have a missed weekly pivot and some missed daily pivots and so on. Aussie yen, 23% fib from Friday's low to current high, is also, this one's probably the closest. It's only 30 pips away, and that's at 92.87. So I'm going to be watching the 23% to 38% fib moves on all the yen pairs from the low of Friday to the current weekly high. I'm going to be watching for that cross of the 23% fib and looking for opportunities to trade down to the 38% fib. We've got some pretty nice missed weekly pivots on all these yen pairs except for the euro yen, and it's at least got a missed daily pivot, so I think there's some pretty good opportunities on the yen pairs for that. Okay, that's something I'm looking at. I'm keeping an eye on the Euro Aussie. We have a missed weekly pivot. We have two missed weekly pivots, two consecutive missed weekly pivots that are crazy amounts of pips away. Last week is all the way up at 148.35, and you can see we're at 142.70. So almost 600 pips away, which is pretty excelente. And then we have a weekly pivot here at 150 or 150 pips away. So I'm just watching the highs. We've seen these highs here. We've been talking about this trend line for a couple of days now, and the highs here of about 14300. So I'm going to be looking for a break of that area to get long up into the missed weekly pivot. So keep an eye on 14300 on the Euro Aussie. If that breaks, if for example, and this is something that could also be a pending order, if the employment numbers come out, pretty bad for Australia, which I'm not even really suspecting that they will, but they could, and if they do, a break of 92.75 is going to be fantastic on the Aussie dollar, and a break of 14300 on the Euro Aussie will be great. So that would take the Euro Aussie in the direction of Aussie weakness, and this would obviously take the Aussie dollar in the direction of Aussie weakness. So I'm going to have pending orders on both of those in that area for potential bad Australian employment numbers. So that's hugely what I'm looking for. We're still in the dollar CAD. We're still hedged. It's probably safe to lock in. We'll be locking in profit shortly. We hedged about 20 and change pips ago. So that's a pretty good safe area, and I think we might just be still able to see some of that breakout and some of that move back up. This could be running down to the rest of that 200 moving average on the daily chart, which is about another 35 pips. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that. And then we'll be locking in here shortly on that dollar CAD and looking for that to kick us out. Pound Swiss franc hanging in there, not doing too much there just yet. Again, New Zealand numbers, you can see the New Zealand dollar gapped on a couple of trade or a couple of pairs here. Euro New Zealand gapped pretty big, back down into the low, so back down into some pretty significant support. I'm interested in getting long Euro New Zealand potentially, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm not in it just yet. And so those are kind of the pairs of major interest. So primary top of the list pairs are going to be putting a buy stop pending order on the Euro Aussie above that high and targeting the weekly pivot, putting a sell stop below the daily low on the Aussie dollar and targeting at least the missed daily pivot here. Which is around 92.10 area, and then I'm going to be looking for some good opportunities to get short Euro dollar. So that is where that's where we are, and we have some really excellent setups really in the works. So I'm excited about what's going to happen over the next several hours tonight and tomorrow. We have good interesting news tomorrow morning, and we have some big Australian news tonight. So very good stuff, and I moved my my profit target on the Euro dollar up, so I'm out at 133.10 for 20 quick pips. Good grief. And that was a nice little trade, nice little easy one, and so far so good. So questions, comments, what are you guys thinking? Let me know.